Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jovan and I'm an Airbnb host in Houston, New York City, Washington DC, and Alexandria, Virginia. So today's topic is going to be about what happens if you have a guest that doesn't check out on time. What do you do? So I've dealt with this plenty of times over the years where you have a guest and checkout is, for my properties, 10 a.m. The guest can always ask for a late checkout. Sometimes I'll give them for free for 11 a.m. Sometimes if they want, they can pay for a 1 p.m. checkout. But as long as we know in advance, we can coordinate that with the cleaners and block off the schedule for the rest of the day so that way we don't have another person checking in. It's really tough when we have guests that are trying to ask for a late checkout at the last minute, because if we already have someone scheduled to come in later on that day, our check-ins at 4 p.m., then it makes it really tough for the cleaners to be able to clean that property later than the scheduled time of 10 and then also still get it ready for a 4 p.m. check-in. With that being said, we do have times where this exact situation happens. Today was a good example. We had a guest that was supposed to check out at 10 a.m. in one of our Houston properties, and I got a call from my team at 11 saying, hey, we just showed up to the property and the guests are still here. From that point, I told my virtual assistants to message the guests and they were able to communicate with them. And in this case, the guests said, okay, yes, we just need 5 more minutes. All right. So we thought everything would be fine. So now at 12 o'clock, I get another call from the cleaners directly again, and they're saying, hey, the guests are still not leaving. We tried to knock on the door and then they're ignoring us at this point. They know we're here. That's when I jump in and I go message the guests directly. Typically my virtual assistants will message the guests and they'll communicate with them throughout the process, but it's very rare that I come in and step in. I introduce myself and say, hi, I'm Jovan. I'm the owner of the property you're staying at. I've heard you had a few issues with checking out. Is everything okay? And then I followed up with, hey, I'm in the area. I will be stopping by to make sure everything is okay with you guys if you need any assistance. So at that point, you send the message and they will read it. 9 times out of 10, once they see that an owner or some kind of authority figure is actually going to visit them to the property, that's when they decide to leave. And in this instance, I sent the message, waited about 10 minutes, and then called the cleaners and said, hey, I'm actually going to be on the way, because I actually did intend to come. I said, hey, are they still there? And they said, actually, it's funny you say that, because right before you called, they started walking out of the door, which happens, like I said, 9 out of 10 times. So it's good to have that ability to be able to step in when the virtual assistants are trying to message the guest, because it's almost like a layered approach. If I was the owner and I was messaging the guest myself every time, they kind of, I don't know what it is, but it feels like there's like a loss of respect. The guests do as they please. But when you have a third party who are messaging the guests constantly, and then someone else steps in who hasn't stepped in before, now they realize someone else has been made aware of this problem and they're going to step in now to fix this issue. So then it becomes real for them. And at that point, they decide that they should leave the property. At this point, the guests were already informed by the virtual assistants that they're late. So now they will be charged a late fee. For every single one of my listings, I make sure I put the exact fee structure of the late fee. The late fee starts at 30 minutes, which I give all guests a free 30-minute grace period. And then it increases every hour a certain amount. Don't forget, it's very important to have your late checkout fees on the higher end, because if it's too low, they won't care. They'll just pay it, and for them, that was the money they paid for a late checkout. You need to charge these guests a lot more than what would normally be charged for the daily rate. So for example, if a property went for $100 a day, then I would charge almost $100 an hour for being late, which doesn't make sense at any point, because if you're a guest, why would you want to pay $100 an hour when you just spent $100 for a night? So that gets them going. And of course, we have the few occasions like we did today where the guests clearly didn't care, but we'll send our resolutions claim through Airbnb. I make sure I communicate with my cleaners. They send me screenshots, they show pictures, they take a picture of when the guest is leaving. That way we have proof, and then we can send it to Airbnb, and then we can file the claim based on the rules that we set. That's how you also get your claims paid out properly for late checkouts. Now, what if the guests refuse to leave even after I told them I was coming? Well, at that point, and luckily I haven't had to do this yet because the guests pretty much leave once I get there. But if there was an instance where the guests still wouldn't leave, then you have to get the police involved. And obviously, depending on where you are, that's different rules for different jurisdictions. So I can't speak on your city, but the police will be the best way to handle the guests being removed from that property at that point. Now, at this point, once you got the guests out of there, typically if a guest is not following rules when it comes to checking in and checking out, then there's a high probability of them also not respecting the rules inside the house. So at that point, we have to go inside and do a really good inspection to make sure nothing is broken, nothing is stolen, and pretty much the house is still in good condition. And now we have to make sure that we can get it ready and cleaned properly for the next guest that is checking in. So what can we expect next? Because we had to essentially rush the guests out of the property, now we have to expect that they're going to leave a bad review for us. And in 2025, as you might know, getting reviews away from Airbnb is almost an impossible task. But the rare exception is that in this case, once they have a breach of rules, which they did of not checking out on time, it's much, much easier to be able to get negative reviews removed for that instance. Once you get the negative review, if you do get it, all you have to do at that point is screenshot the chat between you and the guests and showing Airbnb that they were late, and then uploading that documentation and showing, hey, they are retaliating against me because they did not follow the rules and now they're upset. And we haven't had a single instance where Airbnb denied our claim based on that. So it's really important to have your documentations ready and correct. Otherwise, Airbnb will not validate your claim. Hey, if you're liking this video so far, please give me a like and subscribe for more content. I will be providing a lot more content and giving insights that a lot of people are not giving. So that's pretty much the topic for today. And if you have questions that you might want me to talk about, you can definitely drop a comment and I will be looking at all the comments and could even make a video discussing the topic that you might have a question about. And as always, please have a good day. Bye.